Hey everyone, it's Michael here, and I've created this short video in order to do a review of the 13 principles of communication that I talked about in our first lesson. It would be useful for you to watch this video and review it. You don't need to memorize the principles of communication, but it would be a good idea for you to watch the video and keep them in mind while you're doing the work for my class and also for your other classes as well. These principles will really help you to improve your communication, so let's go for it. Let's start. Number one, always look for the main message. Whenever we're reading or listening to something, there is a lot of information to process, and not everything that the person says or writes will contribute to the main point that they're trying to make. So you will have to go through a lot of information, but always try to find the main message, as that will help you to understand what the person wants you to believe. Number two, always look for the intention behind the message. People don't create things without having some purpose. Everything that's created has a purpose, and it might just be to entertain, or it might be to get you to believe something. There are all different purposes. But once you know what the message is, make sure you try to find the intention behind the message. Is the person wanting you to believe something, to do something, to accept something? So always ask yourself, what is it they want you to do with the information that they've provided? Number three, don't just accept the message, question it. So whenever we read something or listen to something, especially when it's an argument that someone wants us to believe, we should always ask questions about what it is they want us to believe. We should ask questions like, can we accept this? Has the person provided evidence for what they want us to believe? So we shouldn't just blindly accept things. And also, if someone is trying to make an argument but they can't give you any evidence to support their points, that's just an opinion. It's not a fact. So always ask questions about what it is you're being asked to accept or to believe. Number four, who, what, why, how, and when. So these are the essential question words that you should be using whenever you're asking questions about something that you're reading or listening to. Um, Basically, think like a journalist. That's what journalists do. They don't stick to yes and no questions. They ask open questions to try and get as much information as possible. So whenever you're asking questions about something that you've read or that you've listened to, always keep in mind the W questions and the H question, which is how. So who, what, why, when, where, and how. Keep those in mind, ask those questions, and you'll improve your critical thinking skills. And critical thinking is a key part of evaluating any message. Number five, increase your attention span. So social media, particularly TikTok, where things have to be, done in like 10 seconds, has kind of destroyed our attention spans in the last couple of years. We now find it hard to concentrate on things without scrolling through or without looking at other things. However, for your career and for your university studies, you will have to get used to paying attention and concentrating to long form content. Short messages are good. And in an ideal world, we should be trying to keep messages as short as possible so that people remember them. But there are times that we have to process longer forms of information. So get used to doing that, to paying attention to long form content, such as long articles or long videos. Because you will need these skills throughout your life. Not everything can be done in 10 seconds when it comes to reading or listening. So get used to those things. And my challenge here that I'm going to set you is to go to whatever social media app you use. It doesn't matter if it's Facebook, Threads, or TikTok. And my challenge to you is to spend 5 minutes going through the content, but without skipping and without scrolling past things. Okay, try and do that and just see how you find it, see how difficult it is. But get used to dealing with longer form content because you are going to need it in your employment and your studies. Number six, get used to listening and get used to listening well. Listening is an essential part of communication. In fact, some people would argue it's the most essential part of communication. We should be listening first before we speak. So get used to listening, and listening is not just one thing, okay? It's not just one activity. There are different processes and there are different levels, and we'll talk about those in a later class. But you have to get used to listening and evaluating and interpreting information, particularly for those who are planning on working in health related fields, because you will have to listen to doctors, you will have to listen to your patients, and you will have to interpret that information and apply it. So, listening, improving your listening skills, absolutely essential for communication. Number 7, make your message clear. This one is kind of self explanatory. Clearer messages are easier for people to understand. So always make your message clear. Um, Make sure you give specific details, and that's especially important if you want someone to do something. As a general rule, it's better to tell someone what they should do rather than what they should not do. That just makes everything clearer. So there are different things to consider here. We have to avoid double negatives, for example, but always make sure your message is clear, and we'll be looking at how to do that throughout the course. Number 8, make your message attractive to your audience. Now, to be clear, that does not mean lie to them, okay? You should always be honest when you're communicating, but you need to do it in a way that your audience will accept and will also understand. Sometimes we have to change the way we communicate. So, for example, people whose first language is not English, we might have to change the words that we use, for example. So make the message clear to your audience, and also make it in a way that's attractive and that they will be able to follow and to understand. Number 9, poor writing means that your message is lost. If you do a piece of writing that has a lot of spelling errors, a lack of punctuation, a lack of full stops, things like that, it means that your message can get lost because the person is having to spend so much time working out what you're trying to say that the message gets lost. Now, I know a lot of people find writing difficult, but it's worth taking the time to learn the correct rules of writing, and that means capital letters, full stops, and punctuation. If you do that, it will make your communication, your written communication, much easier to understand. So take the time to learn the rules about good writing and good style, and your communication will be much easier. Number 10, get used to the sound of your own voice. I know a lot of people hate speaking out loud in public, but there are no jobs where you cannot talk to people. So you have to get used to speaking, you have to get used to saying your opinion, and you have to get used to speaking clearly. Um, it can make people very nervous at the start, but it's something that we all have to practice and we all have to do. When you mumble or speak really quietly, it's very difficult for people to understand you. So make sure you get used to speaking clearly. For those of you who are parents, that will probably be a bit easier because you will know you have to speak clearly for children to hear and to understand what you're saying. So get used to speaking clearly and get used to the sound of your own voice. Number 11, criticize the message, never the person. Um, Especially in social media, I know it can be really easy to get angry about things that people say or that people write. But when we're criticizing, we should be criticizing their words or their argument and what they're saying. Never ever criticize the person, for example, their appearance or something like that, because doing that simply makes you a troll. And in which case, you lose any argument that you make. As I said, I know it's very difficult in this day and age, but we should always focus on criticizing the message or the argument and not the person who's making it. Number 12, if you disagree with someone, explain why, but try to understand why they believe what they do. So, this is all about trying to show empathy. People might have very legitimate reasons or legitimate experiences why they believe something they do, even if it's not correct. So when you disagree with someone, try to understand why they have that point of view, and that might actually help you construct an argument that will convince the other person of what you think as well. So the best thing to do here is to try and get people thinking. Remember, let's go back to the questions. So the best thing here to do is to get people thinking by asking them questions. Also, Disagreeing with someone is a skill, and it's one that you need to learn to do well and that you need to do in a respectful manner. So, as I said, important thing, when you disagree with someone, by all means explain why, but try to understand their point of view as well. Finally, point number 13, people remember stories that illustrate your point. Um, yes, you want to make the message clear as you possibly can, but if you can tell a story that illustrates the point of the message, people will remember that far more. Stories are very, very powerful. We remember them very, very well, and it really helps a message to stick. So if you have a story to tell, when you're giving a presentation, for example, if you have a story to tell that illustrates your point, um, make sure you use it because people will remember it. Just make sure your point doesn't get lost when you're telling the story. So always make sure you finish by emphasizing your point, but stories will really help people remember it. Okay, and that's the 13 principles of communication that I talked about in the class. So I hope this video review was helpful, and I hope you remember those points as well. As I said, try to incorporate them when you're studying, and also, when it comes to time for work as well. So make sure you remember those principles of communication, and try to apply them as much as you possibly can. So now that you've watched the video, feel free to do the questionnaire on whether you're a confident communicator as well. And it'll be interesting to see the results. So thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next class. Bye.